All right, welcome everybody. My name is Tim, and we have our special guest Shane from Relative Time.
Hi, everyone.
There we are, and we're glad to be here. This is a little bit different as far as the day and the time and everything, but I'm just glad to have Shane here. I enjoy some of the stuff that he gets to talk about, and his reviews, obviously, on his channel are awesome.
Thank you.
So we have his expertise on today's topic, which is focused on military styled watches. But before we do that, let's get into the viewer submitted photos on everyday carry, watches, that kind of thing. And we have Paul submitted to us some watch photos. And, we talk about field watch. We're going to talk about field watches a little bit after this, but this G-Shock is probably one of the greatest current field watches that's out there. I see my cousin was in the military. I have several cousins in the military.
Yeah.
That's a popular watch. What do you think of the Square as far as a field watch goes?
Yeah, I mean, it serves all. It's not necessarily a classic one, but it serves all the main purposes for it. Tough, durable, easy to read at a glance.
Yeah. The G-Shock or just the Casios are such a popular military style watch now, especially the Square too. Yeah. So thank you, Paul, for that one. But he has a second one on here. This is another one. This is the Islander, and I forget what it's called. I want to say the Jefferson.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
It's not. Anyway, GMT 9075 Miyota 9075 movement, and this is a fantastic watch. I know he's doing a review on this one, but the color on this one, I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of Islander watches. I do have one, but this one, I like this one quite a bit. I just like the orange GMT hand on there because it's that contrasting color with blue.
Yeah, looks sharp.
I really like that contrasting matchup when you have blue and orange or even yellow.
It's the Jefferson. I just looked it up.
It is the Jefferson. That's okay. Yeah. All right. I was thinking it might be, but yeah, cool watch. So do you have any Islanders, Shane?
I got one. I've had one previously. I wound up selling it. I think that was it the Spork, which was sort of the refresh of an old Seiko that was kind of a pilot's watch, field watch.
Okay.
Sold it a while ago and just bought the new NH34 GMT came out with, which I think is called the Melville. That's got like the hammer dial. Came out a couple weeks ago or a week ago.
Somewhat. Hey, Paul. Hey, there you go. There you go. How's it going, Paul? Somewhat random question for you, Shane. Would you ever consider your own line of watches?
Do
you have that bug?
A little bit, especially now that there's a couple other reviewers that are doing it. But it has to be. Well, it's kind of like anytime. Like I've thought about, I should do some sort of product. Like I know there's other reviewers that put out coffee and other people that put out like watch straps. But it's like, for me, if I'm going to do something, I want to make sure it's special.
Yeah.
It's not just taking something else and putting my name on it. And I'm not necessarily the best graphic designer. So if I did it, it'd probably try to partner with some of the good designers that I know that I've made friends with sort of that already have their own brands and maybe do like more of a collaboration.
Yeah. So Paul is looking at buying that one. Yeah. That's something I think when I think about this channel that I'm doing and just doing the watch reviews, and now I'm kind of morphing, and this is the way it was supposed to be, was like gear in general, not just watches. I just got sucked into watches like big time. But there's something out there I think that I would want to promote, and I think it's going to be in this gear area. And I'm around so much stuff like that. I think there's got to be something for me in that arena. I think of gear.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a watch though. There's so many watches out there. That's I think the hard part.
It's a hard market to get into, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, Jody's doing really well, but part of that is because Jody's Jody, and a lot of people bought the watch, I think, to help support him.
Right.
Although I got one recently to review, and it's actually a pretty good watch too.
Nice. All right. And it seems like when you start out like this, you're starting out with something that's kind of already established, like the dive watch or the SKX in the case of Islander watches, and you build up from there. So that's, I don't know. I kind of like I want to go for something unique right off the bat, which is
Yeah.
probably the bad
Hard.
way of doing it.
Yeah. Marks did it right with Islander. I mean, he started off, he saw a need
Yeah.
for the since the
Yep.
SKXs were dead, let's kind of bring in basically Super Seiko homages, and now he's expanding out to kind of his own designs and stuff that's more unique.
Right. Right.
Which why he's not, because I don't know if you go on some of the Facebook groups, is one thing that bugs me at times, is that you have some of those Facebook groups are very specific at what's considered a micro brand. And for some of them, he's still not considered a micro brand because he doesn't meet some of the criteria.
Really?
And I don't understand why. I think part of it was originally because he was doing SKX homages, but now it's like he's got a lot of original stuff too. It's like, what's the problem now?
Huh. All right. I never even thought about that not being a micro brand, but okay. I can kind of see, like, when you start off with the SKX skeleton, so to speak, and you just kind of dress it up differently. But I don't know. He's done some different stuff lately. I have an Islander pen. I really like that one. It's a little on the small side for me, but the design itself is it's pretty unique, I think. And it really fits his idea of like a train station, so.
Okay.
Because that's I think that's the model of his names for his watches generally, isn't it? The different models are named after train stations.
Or I thought it was like cities in Long Island, but could be.
Oh, okay.
Like stops on this.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We have, there's a close up. Yeah. That's a beautiful blue.
Yeah.
There's something, you get the right color blue and wow, it really pops. All right. Everyday carry. All right, Shane, what do you think? What do you think of the everyday carry? Is this too much stuff for you? Or is this, where do you fit on just the stuff?
That's probably about right. Maybe a little kind of overkill. It depends on what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, you got one watch, you got one extra mag. I mean, as long as you don't have like a bunch of extra mags, that's where it's getting overkill. Only one knife. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think I'm becoming more conscious of how much stuff is in my pockets. And yeah, for me, I'm not sure I'd carry a tourniquet on me personally, on my person.
Yeah.
I think that would be more in the car or in a bag or something like that. But yeah, he's got the tourniquet, the knife, the flashlight, the Glock 43, and again, the square classic, and the pepper spray. This is something about like everyday carry for people who are looking at personal self-defense. The pepper spray is actually a really good non-lethal, very effective. Have you ever been pepper sprayed or gotten pepper spray in your eyes?
Nor do I want to.
I'm going to tell you. So I was a reserve deputy for 4 years. And so to carry this stuff, you have to be sprayed by it. So to carry a taser, you have to be shot by it.
Yeah. Now,
you don't have to get shot by a gun, but you do with a taser and you do it with the pepper spray. And I will take the taser over the pepper spray any day. Any day. Yeah, I should show the taser video when I got tased. It's pretty funny.
I've seen, I got offered to get tased once as I went to a Citizens Police Academy here in Texas. And near the end of it, they're like, who wants to get tased? And I was like, no.
You got to try it. It's 5 seconds of like uncontrollable. And the funny thing is, when I got tased, all I could hear was the electricity in my ears. It was like, and when it's done, it's completely done. There is no side effect. It's really weird. Of course, you had the probes, they pull the probes out, but that's just like, you got somebody poked you with more than just a pinprick. But it's so funny to watch the other guys get shot. I mean, all of us were laughing at each other when we all got shot. But the pepper spray, that's just torture. That's flat out torture. It's like, it gets in your eyes and then it's in your hair. And then you go home and you take a shower and it happens all over again because all that oil comes back. You have to, they tell you when you shower, guys, bend over so you don't get that oil going down to, where, like, just make sure it goes off your face down to the bottom of the shower. So, but that's, pepper spray is, I would, anytime somebody pulls up pepper spray, I'll do whatever you say.
See, I just worry here in Texas because it's always windy. And if you're on the wrong direction.
That's true. That is very, very true. How are you with carrying a pen? Do you carry a pen? Because Paul's got a pen in his everyday carry.
Not usually.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably should, but not usually.
Yeah. I've been trying to carry a pen, and I just don't see enough use as of right now, so I may stop.
Yeah. I mean, I always have
I don't know.
couple in my car specifically in a little bag, and I always have one in whatever backpack or bag I have. But yeah, never usually on me.
Yeah. Well, and there you can find a pen somewhere else too, right? You know, it's like it's not if you don't have one on you, you can just ask for a pen that people usually have them. You
Yeah.
know? It's different than say, hey, you got a knife on you? You got a Glock 43 on you? No.
Yeah.
So this is my carry for the last week. And yeah, I don't know. It's like swapping out watches. Obviously, that's the most frequent. I get stuck on a particular flashlight for a while. And so that flashlight there, the green flashlight, is a Lumen Top Silver Fox. Really good flashlight. I like it. And then the Swiss Army knife. I don't know if you do you have a Swiss Army knife? Do you like the Swiss Army knife?
Not for a long time. I kind of went to Leatherman and stopped. Never kind of looked back.
Okay. So you carry Leatherman then?
Yeah.
Or okay. Yeah, I carried Gerber, and then it was like, oh, yeah, I had this, big old multi-tool on the belt or whatever in the pocket. And then I went to a Swiss Army knife. It's like, I don't think I was using that multi-tool, that Gerber multi-tool enough. And I think the Swiss Army knife covers what I need to cover. And that's kind of my,
because 90% of the time I need like knife.
Maybe
ply, maybe scissors.
Yeah.
And some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and that watch on the far left, okay, that's an AliExpress watch.
Okay.
And there is no name and there is no model number for this watch. Zero. And they just sell the watch head. There's no strap or bracelet that goes with it. But I think it's just a really attractive watch.
Yeah.
So I gave it my own nickname. I called it the Drift. But I have never seen a company not have a model number, let alone a name for a watch, like some kind of reference. So if anybody knows what that one is, I'm more than willing to change the title in the video. I think it came out a couple of days ago. But
what's the paracord thing behind it?
So that's attached to my wallet. I don't know. It came with it. And the funny thing is like, I'm determined to use it. It just gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I've never taken it off. But I suppose if I need paracord to, catch a rabbit or something, I've got that.
Yeah. I've always thought about trying to make a watch strap out of paracord. I know people have done it before, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. And I don't know how you would, on the adjustment side, like how would you make sure that you've got the right?
Yeah, it's got to be probably just for you.
Like that would take a few assemblies just to make sure you kind of get it right. Or maybe there's an adjustment way of sliding some knot back and forth on there or something. Adjustment. Yeah. Anyway, that's the carry I have. A couple of G-Shocks. I'm into the G-Shock season now because of the outdoor work kicking into gear. So I don't wear the other stuff quite as much as I do the Casio stuff. So what do you got on today?
Actually put on a field watch. Vario 1918. So kind of their World War I style field watch. Kind of rare.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't really see it.
Almost.
Yeah.
Now, do they sell that with the crystal protector? Or is that an option? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know I've seen it. I don't remember if that's optional. It didn't come with it when I got it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if that's maybe for the brass one.
Okay.
Maybe because there's like 3 different versions of basically the watch now.
Yeah. Some of those vintage World War I watches with the crystal protector on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you there's some serious interference with telling the time at certain times of the day because there's so much metal over the crystal. So, all right. So what I'm wearing today is the Bernie titanium Flieger. Now this is the only type B. I'm not a fan of type B. I don't know about you. Type A, type B.
I kind of like type Bs.
Do you?
Yeah. Because it makes it a little more different than.
See, you are truly a guy who likes a different watch. I'm impressed. I'm impressed because you're consistent.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I like the hour markers. And I know they're there, but
yeah, for me, it's like there's so many other watches that have hour markers. The Type B is more unique, where it's more focused on the minutes.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It was literally is like, I got to get a type B just to make sure that I do like it or don't like it. And I'm okay with it. It's not that I don't like it. What I do like about this watch, it's incredibly light. It's all titanium and it's quartz. So it's like a featherweight and sapphire crystal too. And I think it was like $60.
It's not bad.
So not bad at all. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk field watches. All right, let me pull up the questions here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So I'll go through a couple of the watches that I have here. That I think are field watches that are claimed to be field watches. There's also some watches that companies say are field watches. I don't think they are, and I've got a couple of those to show as well. I want your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Swiss Watch Company. This is their Bunker.
Yeah.
I love this watch. This is one of my favorite field style watches, and it's rather large for field watches go. This is actually in the larger side of
it's like
what
42?
they actually were. Yeah, it's definitely 40, if not bigger. But a Swiss SW200 movement in there, so it's and great loom.
Yeah,
great loom.
They know how to do it.
Yeah. Have you heard of Kingsbury?
Heard of it, never looked at them.
Yeah. So this is the field watch. I don't know that. I think it needs to have the 24-hour markers on there. That's just my personal opinion. Like, you got the 12 hours, then you need to have the 24 hours to go with it. I'm not sure it's a deal breaker on the field watch moniker, but I don't know. So this is a Hemel and Islander. Actually, I have two Islanders. The Hemel and Islander collaboration. This is the Czech 6.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think? Field watch?
Yeah, I'd say that's a field watch.
Okay. All right. All right. This is a Baltony AliExpress D12. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, technically, if it's going for like the Dirty Dozen style, it's old school field watch.
Right. It just seems a little too plain. That's where the 24-hour markers come in. I just think they got to have the 24-hour markers.
Yeah, that one I think more since it's sterile.
Yeah.
Nothing on the dial. If you had a brand name, it looked more whole.
Yeah. That's exactly what the review was. It's like, this is just too wide open. All right. Field watch or not? This is Zelos.
I'd say no.
They call it the Aurora Field.
Yeah.
So I don't see it.
No.
It's a sport watch.
Yeah, and that's the thing with sports watches. Sports watch is just the category when you don't know what else to call it.
Oh, really?
Well, for me at least.
Okay.
It seems that way. I mean, or more often it's kind of, slightly dressy, slightly casual. That's usually what sports watch is. But like sometimes it's like, I don't know what else it is. It's just called a sports watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, pilot watches.
That's
all right. That's
definitely.
Definite pilot watch. All right. GMT. This is the Type A Flieger. This is a AliExpress Rudland, and this is my teenage inner child coming through with a spinning turbine on there rather than a secondhand. But this watch on the time grapher, it's a manual wind.
Yeah.
Zeros on the time grapher, and that was out of the box. It was zeros. I couldn't believe it. All right.
Bulova hack.
Yeah, the Bulova, classic. All right.
Yeah.
And then you got the Citizen, Nighthawk.
A little bit of design, but yeah, it's definitely.
Are you a fan of the ruler, the slide rule that's on there?
It looks cool, but I think it's mostly useless these days.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know how, because mostly it's kind of like most people don't know how to use it. If you do know how to use it, it could come in handy, but most people don't.
Right.
So it's kind of like a tachymeter or a tachometer, however you want to pronounce it, like on a lot of chronographs. It's most people never use it. It's there more for just convention's sake, because that's classically what chronograph has. But most people never use it, so it just kind of takes up space.
Right. I like this slide rule for changing from standard to metric. That's probably the only thing I've ever used it for consistently, because I can calculate tip in my head.
Yeah.
So everybody that talks about, you can calculate the tip on here. Like if you need something like this for it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of tip you.
I mean, there's a calculator on my phone too. So.
Now, Shane, the time is on your phone too, so you kind of eliminate the watch as well. All right. All right. We'll get to that when we get to hiking. But you recognize the flower in the background there? That's a San Diego.
Like, yeah, bird of
Is it
something.
paradise?
Yeah, I think so. Bird of
Is it
paradise.
bird of paradise?
Like
Okay.
Balboa Park.
Yeah, this is my in-laws, and they had those. They were blooming,
Okay.
so I was like, "Oh man, what a great background!" So, all right. So, military style watches, field style watches. What are the characteristics that make up a field style watch, in your opinion?
Basic characteristic is just something that's easy to read.
Okay.
Time at a glance, something you can just kind of quickly go, okay, because you don't have time to fool around. Beyond that, it gets, I think, debatable.
Okay.
Where it's, if you want to be traditional, it should be a no nonsense tool watch.
Okay.
Something that's also not necessarily not shiny, something that's not going to attract people's attention if you're in the field, so to speak, if you want to stay hidden. But modern field watches, I think, can also be a little bit more dressy, and that's kind of where they hit sort of a hybrid situation. And those are actually kind of my favorite, because I think they're more useful in modern society, but they're not necessarily classic.
Right. Yeah, I think the field watch is like what you said, completely utilitarian. Like there's really not a lot of flash to it. It just tells the time. Three-hander. I think it should have 24-hour markers on it, but it's very, very plain, like you say. And it's also the case is not polished, and this is like the traditional field watch.
Yeah.
But when you start adding stuff to it, and I got to say this, I'll pull up the, let's see here. How do we do that? We go back to this one. The Kingsbury, this is where I get suckered in. This to me is a hybrid because this has got kind of a sector dial to it.
A little bit, yeah. Get the crossovers.
You know? Yeah. So something like that. And then you got the yellow, second hand on there. It's got some polish around the bezel. So it starts to kind of hybridize into some of this non-field type stuff.
I mean, for me, the best example would be look at Hamilton. You got the regular field khaki field.
Yeah.
And then you have the khaki king.
Right.
The khaki field is a classic, and then the khaki king makes it a little bit more shiny. It makes it almost like a little bit more of a dress watch, but it still has sort of a field watch dial to it, and then you have a day date. It makes it a little more complicated, but it turns it into something a little different.
So how does the field watch or the military style watch, because pilot watches are another category too. And it's funny because the pilot watch is this traditionally very large case. The field watch traditionally was a very small case.
Yeah.
And now they've kind of both come to the center where they're right around that 38 to 40 millimeter range. But what do you see those watches as far as your collection goes? Like, is this a high priority in your watch collecting? Is this any other category? It's not really a big deal.
It's more, I mean, I like them. I have enough. Let's put it that way. So I'm not actively seeking them out, but if I see something I like, yeah. It's kind of like, field watches and GMTs are more my favorites.
Yeah. I started out with field watch. I went nuts over field watches first. That was the watch that I thought was just, I don't know if it was the easiest thing to collect, but it just seemed like it spoke to me the loudest. And now the standard is so high, like I think what you're saying, I don't collect field watches nearly as fast because I don't know, I've got a bunch in my collection. I'm looking for certain things maybe, or something really has to shock me into changing my mind and say, yeah, I need this one.
Yeah, I think for me originally, that's kind of the route I went. But part of that was I don't really need a dress watch. I'm very rarely now need a dress watch, and I have plenty of them. And at the time, so it was either dress watch, field watch, or dive watch. And normally with the dive watch, while they're maybe better for water resistance, the dials are a little smaller because you have the bezel and a bigger case. Where the field watch, to me, I was more attracted to because it's a lot easier to read. It's got more dial. You don't have the bezel kind of getting in the way.
Right.
And I like having Arabics on the dial versus most dive watches don't.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, do you like to have all the numbers on there? This one has every other, so it's all the evens. Do you like it on the quarters, the 12, 3, 6, 9?
Depends on the design. I think, let me think about it. I think a lot of it, I probably do like a more every other,
Yeah.
or doing something where it's a little different, where you have larger numbers and smaller numbers, kind of like that.
Yeah. The Check 6 does that.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like the every other. Um, and if the numbers are bigger as a result of that,
Hmm.
every other, like the 12 and the 2 and the 4 are just bigger. I don't know. It just seems like it's more legible than trying to cram them
Yeah.
all in there.
And I'm not
And
sure if it's me, but sometimes when I see that sort of pattern, it almost forms like a crosshair, where it's like you can almost form like an X with the
yeah.
numerals,
Oh,
and that helps me focus kind of right in.
yeah. Very true. Very true. What about pilot watches? What are the things you look for pilot watches?
Um, Again, they're pretty similar to some extent. It's more about ease of use again, but it's going to be just kind of a different hand style for the most part, or maybe slightly different functionality. Like the Airman's a little bit of its own special thing,
Yeah.
compared to like a classic Fleeger.
Right.
But yeah, classic Fleeger is the classic pilot's watch, where it's just easy to read, big hands. That's it.
hmm hmm Do you like the traditional pilot watch? Do you like, again, kind of like the field watch? You're kind of going like, I like the hybrid. Are you looking
Yeah.
for a hybrid in the pilot watch as well?
Originally, I always wanted, like, I was obsessed with getting like a good lockout or something like a true classic sort of Fleeger. I've
hmm
kind of moved away from that, and I don't know why. Um,
Do you have a Laco?
I like, yeah, I do have one, but it's not like a normal classic Fleeger. It's kind of one I picked up on sale. That's so glow in the dark one, or like a lume dial.
Oh,
But I always
okay.
wanted like a classic, just straight black,
Yeah.
and I never wound up getting it. But now I have a couple other sort of pilot's watches that are very different, like the Zelos that came out 2 releases ago, the Eagle.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
a pilot's watch. It's a little different. It's got some funky case shape, titanium, great lume, but a little
Yeah.
different.
Right. Is there anything in the the military style watches, field or pilot, that pulls you away from the traditional into like, oh yeah, I'll go this way with this watch, like maybe full lume dial, or is there any kind of like thing that, I don't know, it's just a lure that's like, okay, that's not traditional, but I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends, like extra functionality or something like, the Airman is classic. It's got a lot of heritage, it's got a lot of history. So that was the one watch I was attracted to, and I do have one. Um, the like that Zelos that came out, it's titanium. It's a little, just a very different design, really cool looking dial. Yeah, for me, maybe that's more of it. It's just looking for things that are different than the standard at this point, because I have so many other watches and I've reviewed so many other watches that I'm just looking for something that's kind of stand out and different.
That I think that is like the evolution of watch collecting, because I don't know about you, but I'm just thinking as you're talking about this, like dive watches, field watches, pilot watches, I kind of went the traditional route to start with.
Yeah.
Got those under my belt, and it's like, now I'm going to go with a different color. I'm going to go with a different thing about the watch. And this Rudland Pilot, Turbine Pilot, I mean, this is the like inner child in me coming out,
Yeah.
but you have this turbo fan for the running seconds, or the small seconds down there, and it was an immediate hook for me. I was
Yeah.
willing to, yeah, I'm going to go with this like middle school looking watch as far as the
Yeah.
design goes, because it's just cool.
Yeah.
And it has something a little bit different on a Flieger style watch.
And I think that's the evolution of watch collecting for some people right now, is because you don't really need a watch because you have your phone. So you might as well get something cool and different
Yeah.
to some extent, at least at some point in the watch collecting hobby.
What's the most different looking military style watch that you have? Like what's out there?
Probably that Zelos, because it's got the like cutout sides and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Other than that, well, the Airman's a little different than a lot of other pilots' watches. I had a Nighthawk at one point. That's kind of somewhat different. Uh, Might be I have an Orion Hellcat, which is not a traditional pilot's watch, but he calls it a pilot's watch. It's, yeah, you have to look it up. It's kind of what it looks like, but
Uh-huh.
it's nice, cool looking watch. But it's really hard to argue that it's a pilot's watch from like a classic standpoint. But in terms of just different and funky, it's probably that Zelos.
Do prices kind of dictate whether or not you're going to go with a military style watch, like for me, a field watch, am I going to pay $500, $600, $700 for a field watch? I don't think so, because the design itself is so simple.
Yeah.
You get into some dress watches, you kind of break the bank a little bit for a dress watch or for a different dive watch, but for me, the field watch, there are certain lines like design wise. I'm willing to, like for this Rudland, I'm willing to go the distance on a Rudland, but it's also a cheap watch.
Yeah.
But a pilot watch or a field watch, I'm not sure. I think there is a price limit for me. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm not going to spend as much necessarily on a dive watch. What do you think?
It's kind of hard to say, because at some level, like, I agree, because to me it's like, if it has a simple printed dial, it shouldn't be that expensive versus something that's got like nice applied indices, polished, and everything goes up. But when you look at the industry as a whole, that's not necessarily the case, because I mean, some really expensive flat printed dial watches out there, or you have like the Explorer 2, which is maybe the most iconic field watch out there, the one everybody lusts after. But that's expensive. Maybe not as expensive as some of the other Rolexes, but it's still pretty pricey. For me, though, yeah, I do have issues more if I don't see a reason for the price of paying that much for it.
Right. Are there any field watches, military pilot watches, that you're looking at like, ooh, I would really like to get my hands on that watch?
Yeah. Let's see. Some of the.
Are you a Rolex Explorer 2 guy? Like,
No,
are you?
That's one. I mean, it's a great looking watch. I don't like Mercedes hands.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There's one really famous IWC watch that everybody kind of wants.
Okay.
That I can't remember. It's a good big pilot's watch. I don't remember the number.
Is that the one with the big eye, or is that a Longines? Who has the one that called the big eye?
Oh,
maybe that's Longines. Would you go after a brand? Like, would you go after a Longines because it's a Longines, or would you like? Does brand play into that? Like,
if it's an iconic model, sometimes, but it kind of depends. Like, was it the Breitling Navitimer? It's never really attracted me. Like, that's a big pilot's watch, but that's also because I look at it and it's just so chaotic and busy. But a lot of that's because of the slide rule thing,
right?
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like, Fliegers too is kind of a weird thing too, because if you want like an authentic Flieger, there's some people that say, oh, you need a real good expensive Flieger, an authentic one. You got to go for like Lockow or what's the other German brand, because they're the ones who made it, or that brand existed back in World War II and they were making it.
Right.
But for me, the thing is, if you look at it, is that none of those companies came up with it. It was a design the Luftwaffe, whoever came up with, and just commissioned a bunch of places to make them, just like the Dirty Dozen watch for field watches. So it's like nobody really owns it. So does it really matter at that point?
Right. Yeah, and those, if you're going authentic, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they supposed to be in the upper 40s, even low 50s?
Probably like 45.
And they go over your jacket. Yeah, they go over your jacket, and I'm not sure people really want the authentic one.
And
today.
some of the lower end Lockows are using like a Miyota movement. It's like,
right.
It's like, that doesn't quite work.
No. So do you like the idea of getting a historically accurate military style watch? Is that on your radar?
It depends on the watch to some extent. Like the Airman, like I was obsessed with getting an Airman. I love having it, although I'm probably going to give it to my nephew, who's becoming a commercial airline pilot when he graduates. Just because there's a lot of history to that.
Yeah.
But kind of like the standard field watches, not quite as much. Yeah, I think so it really depends on the model and what it is. If it's something kind of special and unique.
Yeah. Hey, I think this is my son on here. I think that's my second oldest son.
Okay.
Hey, Noah. I think that's Noah. What about like vintage watch? Okay, so now we're going like
vintage,
actual World War II watch, actual field watch. Like,
if you can find one.
Would you go for that?
Maybe. I'm kind of hesitant on vintage watches in general. Depends on the price, because some of them get pretty expensive, but it's like you don't really know. I don't know a safe place to really buy one that I can trust.
Yeah.
And not pay an exorbitant amount of money. And part of the thing too, it's like the one Rolex dive watch. What was it called? The one that actually had sword hands at the British military, the mil-spec Submariner.
Right.
Those are really hard to find because they used them. They got used and abused and thrown away. So like the true watches, you're not really going to find them in good shape.
My plan is this. And tell me if I've got a good plan here. But I'm going to start with Vietnam, and then I'm going to go back to Korea. Eventually get back to World War II, because like you're saying, the use and abuse that they go through.
Yeah.
The Vietnam era watches, which is is it Marathon? And anyway, those kind of watches are, they're used, but they're probably still serviceable.
Yeah.
You get back to World War II, especially World War I, and are they even serviceable?
Yeah. You've got to find somebody that knows what they're doing, and costs $1,000 just to get it fixed.
Right. Yeah. I don't know about the actual vintage, although I think it'd be really cool. New vintage or new vintage looking. Yeah. I think I'd rather go with a vintage than a new vintage looking, like they have the stamp on the back and all the information and all that stuff. Like that to me is, I don't know. That's an homage I'm not sure I want to involve myself with.
Yeah.
But what about wearing them? What's your pattern, if any, on wearing military style watches? Do you have a loadout that you like?
Just depends on what I'm wearing. Kind of with any of my watches. I mean, for a long time, like I said, I always kind of like the hybrid watches, which are not true, maybe field watches. So like the Hamilton Khaki King I have is one of my favorites because it's got this champagne dial, which makes it look a little fancier. But it's still got sort of the classic field watch, numeral layout. So it's really easy to read. And for a long time, that was kind of my go-to travel watch because, looks good in shorts. You can go out to dinner with it. Easy to take. So that kind of depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm more like if I'm going hiking or going out somewhere, odds are I'm probably going to wind up taking my Garmin with me rather than a classic field watch, because it's like I'd rather have the GPS.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
I think for me it's the I don't know. I go through spurts of like dive watches and sport watches and field watches. I don't wear a lot of dress watches except to church and on dates with my wife. Just because it feels weird to wear a dress watch when I'm not dressed up.
Yeah.
I don't get dressed up hardly at all anymore. I used to get dressed up all the time for work. I don't hardly get dressed up at all. So the field watch to me is kind of like I'll wear it when I know I'm not going to abuse it because I'm out actually doing my job of lawn maintenance work. So I actually like wearing them quite a bit, and I don't know. Casios come into play. There's just too many watches in the collection, Shane.
Yeah, I know that.
Too many. What's the best value in your mind? The best value brand or maybe model field watch or pilot watch?
That's a difficult one, maybe right now. That's
still a couple out there.
Probably going to be more like AliExpress, one of those brands, like a San Martin, probably a San Martin, I'd say. Or I don't know if Mark has any with his Islander brand. I mean, those are pretty much the two best value brands probably right now, period. Back in the past, it kind of depended because prices have fluctuated. Like that Khaki King I got from Hamilton, I think you'd have a hard time finding it for less than $500 these days. I got it for like $270 like 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was just at the time nobody was wanting them. They had overproduced them. There was a sale or had a coupon from Joma's shop, picked one up. Now it's like you can't find it for that price.
Yeah. I blame Teddy on the Hamilton Khaki Field.
Yeah.
He pressed that, all the videos I watched, that was on a lot of his videos, and for good reason. I mean, this is not like he's not making it up, but but the prices it was just starting to kind of creep up. He'd always say it was under 500. This is the best under 500 field watch that's out there, that's authentic, all that. Well, now wasn't it like $600?
Yeah,
for a khaki field.
I've seen that happen multiple times. Like long time ago, I found on eBay. This channel is really small. A Hamilton Khaki mechanical. It was slightly earlier than the one that's currently out, and you could find them pretty cheap. It was kind of like a watch nobody really knew about. So I did this
Right.
little video on it, and part of it was just how you could pick them up for maybe it's like 250, maybe $300.
Yeah.
And then a month later, TGV put out a video on the same watch, and suddenly the prices started going up. But that also encouraged a bunch of other channels to finally, oh, this is something new and interesting, and they started picking up on it. Yeah, and pretty soon, yeah, you couldn't find them for like less than 600.
Right. Right. Yeah. For that reason alone, I don't think I'm going to get a Hamilton khaki field.
Mm,
It just the cost for what it is
yeah,
versus other brands. And again, the homage, the whole AliExpress thing, like you can get, if you want value or cheap, go there.
yeah.
You're going to get the best bang for the buck. But even like you're buying the heritage of the brand or the company. It's like, I don't know if that's a
Sort of.
good enough reason for me.
And with Hamilton, it's I like Hamilton.
Yeah.
But part of it you got to also understand is that it's not the original Hamilton, because the Swatch Group bought it a long time ago and moved
Right.
them from, was it Pennsylvania, over to Switzerland.
Right. 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 Yeah. So,
and now the Hamilton to probably get right now is like the smaller Murph, which wasn't a real military watch. It was in the movie Interstellar. So
I have seen that now. They talk about that being a field watch. I've recently
Yeah.
been seeing that they're labeling it as a military field watch.
it's in that design, but it was purposely made for the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay,
And
I
enough
didn't know
people
that.
wanted it that they eventually made it for real.
All right. Well, I suppose the Seiko Arnie is kind of a military style watch for that reason alone, right?
Yeah, Predator.
Oh man, what a great movie! What a great watch! Did you ever have a longing for that watch? Do you have one of those?
I still have it. I bought it to review the solar one. Don't remember if I has kept. I not planning on keeping it. I can't remember if I sold it already or not.
Okay.
Because it was just a little too big for me.
Yeah.
Than what I like.
Yeah, man. When I was a kid, that was Predator. No, I wasn't a kid then. I was in high school.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the late 80s when that movie came out?
I think
88?
so. He actually
87?
wore that watch, I think, in like 4 or 5 different
Yeah.
movies. He loved it.
Commando.
Yeah.
But I just was pining over that watch forever. It's like, oh man, I wear this watch. I'm tough as nails.
Yeah.
And nowadays I look at that watch. I'm like, I can't read that digital display. I'm too old for this watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. I think for me, the luxury watches that are out there, like the authentic companies that are making new military style watches, I just don't think I can spend the money on it. I don't
Yeah.
know. If it was an actual vintage watch from that time, yes,
Yeah.
I'd be more willing, especially if it was, a watchmaker got their hands on it and they could, I don't know, rebuild it or whatever
Tune it
they
up.
do with it, tune it up. But that to me is that's the way to go. I'm just not that enamored with certain companies making a new version of it, because even Laco is making some pretty strange looking Fliegers.
Yeah.
They've got repackaged different Flieger designs that are out there that are okay. They're different for sure. Yeah.
You can sometimes get a good price on them. That's why I have. I've had a couple, but
Yeah. How many curious, like used watches, do you search the used channels, so to speak, as much as the new watch channels as far as purchasing goes? Like, how do you go about acquiring your own on your own? Like,
depends. If I'm going to do a video on it, I prefer new.
okay.
But I'll still look for good deals. If it's something really expensive, then I'm definitely going to be looking for used.
Okay.
That's usually the route I go, because sometimes it's hard to justify paying MSRP on an expensive watch when, like a car, the value just plummets if you look at it what they are on eBay.
Right. Do you prefer, when you're spending your own money on this, do you prefer to go with the dealer, or are you okay with the gray market?
That's always the question. I mean, it's like anything with insurance. It's sort of a thing. Is it? That's basically how I've heard the argument too. Is it's the amount of money you're saving by going gray market would probably pay for service.
Okay.
So it's sort of a wash. I think it depends on the watch itself. Like one of the watches I bought that I made sure I didn't actually buy it from an authorized dealer. I bought it used, but it came from an authorized dealer. Actually, I just happen to have it here. My Oris Aquas.
Okay.
And I bought that specifically because with the Caliber 400 in here, they have a 10-year warranty versus
Yeah.
everything else got
Okay.
2 or 3. So for me, that was a huge
Right.
bonus.
I
in it.
see. Yeah.
But normally, if it's like 1 or 2 year warranty, it's like doesn't necessarily matter.
Right.
Yeah. But
yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't. Oris is a company I would like to get into. What do you think of Oris watches? Are they?
I like them.
Okay.
It's Oris is the way I've described it before is that they're kind of like, for better or worse, the Volvo of the watch world.
Yeah.
Where they have history, they have heritage, but they're sort of independent, or at least Volvo when it was independent,
Right.
and maybe Saab. They're kind of doing their own thing, but they're still big enough that they can make their own movements, do their own funky designs, but they still have this history and heritage. And they're also usually price wise somewhere between like some of the more higher end stuff and like the lower end luxury. Kind of like Volvo is going to be more expensive than the top of the line Nissan, but it's going to be cheaper than a bottom of the line, Mercedes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like with not Volvo, Oris, what I like about them, at least like the Aquas line and some of their divers, is it's more like there's a logical argument to be had for their watches. Like when you get into luxury stuff, logic goes out the window. It's all about kind of what you want and kind of the mystique of the brand and the badge that's on it. Versus with Oris, there's still like a logic to it because they're kind of priced better.
Okay.
That you can make, an argument saying, hey, I should get that because of this.
All right. Do they hold their value? Like
not as much as some stuff.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. It always depends. Like Rolex is always the one everybody holds, says, oh, it goes up in price, but everything else pretty much falls. Yeah. But does it fall more than other watches? It's hard to say.
Are you aware of any brand that's kind of at that mark? Like, let's just say Rolex and some of those other companies that are out there, AP, they hold their value. Okay. Let's just say they hold their value.
Theoretically. I've never really looked into it.
Let's just say 10 to 15 years later, like you're at least going to get your money back. What watch brand is close to that line that's not so expensive? Like, is Oris kind of close to that tipping point of now you're in that brand where maybe 5 to 10 years later, you're going to get your money back?
I don't think it's ever a brand. And even with some of the bigger, those luxury brands, it's not so much the brand, I think, as the specific watches. Like with Seiko, most of them are going to go down a little bit. But if you get like one of the special editions or one of the limited editions, and that's one that everybody just happens to want, prices go up.
Okay.
And so it just kind of depends. And sometimes that's just like with anything collecting. It's like you're guessing on whether or not it's going to be the one watch everybody wants.
Right.
So for me, it's like some of the people that look at watch collecting as like an investment. I think it's a bad way to look at watches. Yeah. It's a hobby. You're wasting money. Just embrace it. So to speak.
Well, yeah, it's a lot like being an actor. Like there are certain actors who make a lot of money, and then there's a whole bunch that don't. Mm-hmm. And certain watches that really they increase in value or they hold their value, and there's a whole bunch that don't.
Yeah, and part of the problem I have with like people who do when you look at like a Rolex and this is an investment, you're risking it every time you walk around with it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
You trip, you fall, somebody steals it. And it's something that you're going to have to, pay $1,000 or so just to have it maintained every 5 years, 7 years.
Right.
Does that mean it's really an investment? Is it really keeping up with inflation better than something else?
Right.
I never really looked into it, but I'm a little hesitant.
Are you a luxury? Like, would you buy a luxury watch? Let's just say like Rolex or some of those, 10 to 15 grand and more. Is that something that's on your?
Not. I mean, I wouldn't mind eventually maybe getting one, but it's not. I have a hard time with the process of it. Like if I have a hard time with the idea of spending like 7-8 grand on a watch. $1 grand, yeah, I've done that. But even at that point, it just feels like, is that financially responsible? Is that the smart, wise thing to do, or is it better to pay off some debt, put it in the stock market, invest it in something?
Yeah.
I'm a practical person, so for me, there's got to be a practical argument to go along with that, and I just have a hard time with it.
Right. Yeah, to me, when you said the putting it on your wrist and going out and wearing it, that's my biggest detractor with luxury watches. Is I want to wear them At the same time, I know when I wear them, I'm just killing the value on it because
Yeah.
I'm gonna put scratches on and all that.
Yeah.
So to me, I just don't have the interest in it. I want to wear
Yeah.
the watch. Same thing with a lot of other things. I have a number of firearms, so it's like I don't have firearms that don't work. They have to work. If they
Yeah.
don't work, I don't want
What's
them.
the point of having a safe queen,
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
So
I've told a few people this too, that there's kind of an interesting parallel with, listen, when you sometimes ask like, oh, I'm not like, how expensive a watch should you wear? I think there's an interesting parallel when people ask, what size caliber should I buy? Because usually the answer is it's whatever you feel most comfortable and you can shoot most accurate with.
right,
The bigger the
right,
caliber, along those lines. I think it's kind of the same with watches, is buy the watch that you feel the most comfortable walking around with.
right,
Don't go over that.
right. Yeah, and then there's the whole, safety and security of wearing a watch that's worth thousands of dollars, and then like, is it really worth the confrontation? You
Yeah.
know, so
Like I went to Cancun last year, and right before I did, I remember reading an article of some guy who got killed in like a 7-Eleven somewhere in Mexico for a Submariner.
really,
Yeah. Although, what are you doing in a 7-Eleven
I
in
was going to
Mexico
say,
wearing a
what's the
sub?
guy? What's he doing in 7-Eleven? All
Yeah.
right, okay, yeah, no, that makes total sense. That's where I'm at, and I've had a number of people ask me about that. Like, would you buy a Rolex? Would you wear a Rolex? I don't think I'd even wear one. If someone gave one to me, I'm not sure I would want to wear it for safety and security reasons, let alone I'm not a Rolex fan. I just think they're
Yeah.
overvalued, overhyped, make a great Submariner. There's no doubt about it. But beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just there's a lot of hype.
And for me, in some ways, it's if I go that route or for the more expensive watches I have, I like the fact that they don't look expensive. Or they're not recognizable by people that don't know watches,
Right.
because I don't want to be a target.
Right. And I'd rather have 5 watches than one.
Yeah, yeah.
5 interesting watches than one legendary watch. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, Paul, here his response. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There's always that option.
Yeah. Like I've never really gone to a watch meetup, and I know there's a few in Dallas here now, or at least one that's connected through Watch Crunch, and I keep thinking like, oh, I should go. But at the same time, it's like, do I feel comfortable walking around with like, because you always bring watches to show people. It's like, do I feel comfortable bringing like $5,000 worth of watches or something into a random restaurant
Right.
that I've never been to?
That's exactly true.
But it's Texas, so it's like I'll probably be carrying if I do that.
Along with everybody else, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
Right. All right. So outdoors, do you like to wear field military style watches outdoors? Because we're going to transition into some hiking stuff here. Here's the transition question. Do the field watches, military style pilot watches, get worn more when you're outdoors more? Is that kind of when you wear them more, or does it really not matter?
It doesn't really matter for me. Like I said, if I'm really hiking, I'm taking my Garmin with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm just hanging out outside, I'll probably be wearing one. But maybe not any more or less than if I'm indoors. So I wear them more because I like them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I pick my watches, based more on what do I feel like for the day, not necessarily what I'm doing. Unless I'm doing something where I am going to get grungy, or I might beat something up, and then I'm going to purposely pick something that I don't care if it gets scratched up.
All right. Tangent. Do you ever wear a watch just for the shock value? It's a totally different watch, maybe bright color. Do you go shock value when you wear a watch?
Not really.
Be honest.
I've maybe a few times worn something a little like vibrant, or if like I'm meeting somebody, like, oh, I want them to show them to someone to wear it. But most of the time I find people don't care what you're wearing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually, take that back. Some of the only times I actually like random people on the street maybe say something, or if I'm like going through a drive-through, they say something, is when it is more vibrant and loud.
Yeah.
Otherwise they don't seem to care. But I don't usually wear that just to impress random people.
Right.
So like, a few of the watches I had, like we were talking before the show started about one from a brand called Ikigai. Yeah, I think somebody said something about that, like, oh, that's really cool. I did a recent review on the white ceramic Zodiac. I've had a few people, oh, that's really cool. My wife noticed it. She thought it was weird, but she's like, that's not really you, but I like it, kind of a thing.
And that's the watch encased in ceramic, right? It still
Yeah,
has the
it's not
steel.
pure ceramic. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done it a couple of times when I get in front of a group, and when I went back to the school district I worked at, I was like, I'm going to wear a massive watch,
just because, yeah,
just because. And I've only done it a few times, but when when I'm not in front of other people, or I know I'm not going to be around other people, it's like it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Nobody cares if I wear a big watch. I'm the one who has to wear it, right?
yeah,
So I think it's those public type
yeah,
venues that you have the opportunity
yeah.
to do something like that.
It's kind of maybe a humbling thing, and that's kind of the stupid thing I think with some of the luxury guys is like who are obsessed with getting like a lot of Rolexes, and they get them, and they're basically flexing in front of other people they've never met in person, just online,
Right.
because most people don't care. And I
Right.
think one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had with that was long time ago. I was reviewing the Jeannot Ocean Rover, which is like about as close as you can get to a sub without being like a real Rolex, at least
Hmm.
supposedly. And at the same time, my wife was out with me. We went to breakfast somewhere, and I was wearing that, and she was wearing this bright orange quartz Phoebus. And everybody was complimenting her watch. And meanwhile, I have something that looks almost like a Rolex, and nobody says a thing to me. So
Yeah.
it's like, like it just proves nobody cares.
It's a throwaway Submariner. Who
Yeah.
cares, right? Yeah. And I've had people ask me about, let's see, what was it? It was it's a Casio GPS. Was it W30F or something like that? It's kind of like your Garmin, but it's orange. It has this burnt orange, and that's why I got the color. It's like I love the color burnt
Mhm.
orange, but it has all the GPS stuff in there and all the health,
Yeah.
sleep steps, all that stuff. I'm sitting there, and this guy says, "Nice watch. What kind of watch is that?" And he and I were having this conversation, and nobody else was paying any attention to it. It was
Yeah.
like just two guys that had this conversation. So it's just such a small population of people who actually care.
Yeah.
And the other people, when you start talking watches, they just glaze over like, "Oh my goodness, you're a watch guy."
Yeah. Like only a few times it's happened where it was at Zion National Park. And I don't know if you've ever been to Zion, but there's
Yeah.
like a bus that goes to a lot of the hotels to take you to the park.
Yeah.
And we were on it, and I was just happened to be taking like a quick photo of my watch with my phone to like post on Instagram or something. And the guy across from me is like, he was a watch guy, just randomly. He's like, "Oh, what are you wearing?" I was like, "I just got my Black Bay." And it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. But you can talk with these guys forever. Like
Yeah.
it's just like it's a conversation that is so. It's just like people are dying. Watch guys and gals are dying to talk about their watches with somebody, and they got all this pent up watch stuff they want to talk about, and it just comes out. All right, hiking. We got a few minutes left, so just a little bit of something totally different, but also something very much this time of year. People getting outside, sun's coming out. Grass is green, leaves are coming out. Hiking, and this could be more than just walking around a city park. Okay, so this is kind of like getting off the beaten trail just a little bit, or maybe it's an overnight. So that's kind of the parameters of this. Do you have any advice that you've picked up over the years, or gear that you've picked up over the years? Like when I go for a extended walk or a hike, a little bit off the beaten path, I do this or I bring this.
Yeah. I mean, I always have a Leatherman with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because to me, that's even if it's just like a quick couple hour hike, just in case you get lost, just because multi-tools come in handy for pretty much everything. Beyond that, usually have a watch to at least be able to tell the time. If not, my GPS watch to help me figure out where to go back. Other than that, always hat, sunscreen, always have water, maybe like a Cliff Bar or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy.
Are you conscious of footwear?
Yeah. It kind of depends on what the weather's been. If I'm wearing, usually I just take my regular hiking boots, but if it's maybe something more of a simple kind of park, I might just wear my tennis shoes or something.
Okay.
But most time, if I'm doing anything serious, hiking boots, put on some nice socks.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm huge on is like pick the right shoes, because the worst hikes I've been on are the ones where something's creating a hot spot, doesn't take much time. You're wearing the hiking boots, but it's the wrong, I don't know, it's too rocky, whatever. Like the footwear to me is really important if you know what's coming.
Yeah. And for me, it's a weird thing that I picked up on, that I have a couple of them now. They're called buffs. Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah.
It's like a piece of cloth, a circular piece of cloth. Or you have one?
I was going to
Yeah.
show this.
Yeah, I always have a buff with me. It's like every suitcase I have has one with me. It's either a real one
Great.
or a generic one.
Yeah.
I picked up
100%.
on them years ago at an REI, and like I
Yeah.
remember telling my wife, well, she's like, "Why are you buying these?" And I'm like, "It's like the one thing that I picked up on is it's the one thing like the hippies and the rednecks who go hunting all agree on. It's like this is a good thing to have when you go outdoors because you
Oh,
can
yeah.
use it just as a neck, put it on the headband. I mean, just even if I just have it wrapped around my wrist, just carrying it normally, just in case I need it for something, or I lose my hat, put it on your head. It's a great piece of gear. It's a weird piece of gear, but it's a great piece of gear.
Yeah. Socks is another one for me. I don't know if you've gotten neurotic about socks, but I have gone so far away from cotton.
Mm,
And in the mountains, there's a phrase for mountaineering. There's a phrase that cotton is rotten.
yeah,
You don't ever, you basically just don't wear cotton because it's such a highly absorbent and it takes forever for it to dry out kind of a
yeah.
material, so,
Same with like jeans.
but yeah. Oh yeah. Denim jeans, man. I don't know about you. It's the poly blend. That's what it is. Poly
Yeah.
blend type stuff. But footwear is huge for me. And if you go overnight, I would say two things. Like you spend a third of your day doing it, and that's sleep. Get an air mattress and an air pillow.
Yeah, definitely.
Because when you wake up after a decent night's sleep, for me, it's tent camping, that kind of thing. It is so much better. And this Neo, it's a Thermarest Neo, but it's this ultra light blow up pad that's like 3 inches thick, but the thicker the better. I am old and cranky, so I want a thick pad underneath my body.
At this point, I don't even want to sleep in a tent. I got an RV.
Okay. There you go. But to me, it's sleep. And then the other thing is like when you're sleeping, gloves. I sometimes will wear gloves to bed. Wool socks. I'll have a pair of wool socks even during the summertime.
Yeah.
Just put those on to keep my feet and my hands warm. But I don't know. I've turned into a sock snob, if that's possible. So I wear wool socks all year long. I will wear merino wool blend socks.
Yeah.
But it's wool socks all year long.
I started to. If I wear them too much, it seems like dry out my feet more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's when I lived in Wisconsin, I just like bought a ton of wool socks.
Yeah.
Like every couple different kinds just for like just hiking, just regular stuff. Because that is cold as heck. But yeah, I noticed if I wear them like all winter constantly, they do start to dry out my feet.
Yeah.
And I'll need to put lotion on, which probably should do in winter anyways.
Yeah. One last piece of gear that I bring, and that's a power bank, just a small, something that's like smaller than palm size.
What about a fire starter or like a fire stick?
Oh man, I should probably, but Bic lighters. If I was going to do that, just bring a Bic lighter. Yeah. But I don't know. That's if I know it's going to be overnight or if there's a possibility. So like, kind of where I'm at the base of the Bitterroot Mountains here, literally. So if you walk up to the Bitterroot Mountains, you run the risk of like being in a spot where your cell phone doesn't work and you may have to make a fire. So that's a legitimate thing in this area.
Yeah.
And I don't know about, other areas around the United States, but in this area, you really do have to pay attention to just the possibility of things not going the way that you want, especially weather. We've had snow squalls in June. Okay. So you can be out there and the temperature can drop and you get like a quick half inch of snow covering everything for the next hour. And then of course it melts off, but yeah. So, all right. Was there a question you typed in here?
Somebody was saying something about a question. I wasn't sure. I see something about atomic solar.
All right, here we go. Cryptic visions. What's the question? If you want to put it back up there.
Is it a good
or
thing?
Be more specific? Yeah. I don't know. Atomic solar?
Atomic depends on where you are. That's the thing. The thing is, a lot of the good G-Shocks too have Bluetooth and solar or atomic. Although I've learned that a lot of them, if you turn on Bluetooth, it almost disables the atomic part of it because it doesn't want to confuse itself.
Okay.
And in some ways, if as long as you got your phone with you, Bluetooth may be more reliable than atomic.
Sure. Have you had a place where atomic doesn't work? Because I haven't come across that.
Well, out of the country, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Out of the, I'm talking about in the United States.
In the United States, Florida, I think I was down there once and I noticed it didn't work.
Really? Okay.
Southern tip
Because
of
that's
Florida.
on the edge.
Yeah, because I think it's out of Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah. And every once in a while I have heard like talk of disabling the signal because the military doesn't use it anymore. And everything's going over the internet to sync everything up because that's originally what the purpose of it was.
Right.
Yeah. So if that ever happens, then atomic's not going to help you much.
Yeah, here's Cryptic. Yeah, I'm actually doing this. I was working on a video this afternoon on this. So Cryptic, you're reading my mind. Yeah, atomic solar. To me, that's like the no-brainer. Casio is atomic timekeeping, tough solar. Like it's like just set it in the windowsill and you're good to go. It's year after year. And I've had tough solar watches where the battery hasn't been changed for over 15 years. So by the time you kind of wear the watch out, you may or may not have to replace that solar battery because they do wear out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love them. I think that's one of the best things about Casio is that two-headed monster right there is those two things. But you're right. Bluetooth, more and more are coming out with Bluetooth. So
or GPS, but GPS
that sucks the drain.
The watch. It can't.
Yeah, the battery is like you got to have a bigger watch for most of those.
Yeah, or sometimes it gets a little confusing. So I remember doing it when I was on a cruise ship. I like with my Garmin, because I was running on top of the cruise ship and just using it to track my run automatically updates the time. And can't remember if it was because it was a different time zone or they weren't using daylight savings. I was in the Caribbean somewhere and like the time was just all off after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Question. How many G-Shocks do you have that are atomic solar? Go ahead, Shane. Do you have a list?
None at the moment.
None?
Like, I got rid of all my G-Shocks.
Oh, okay.
I got the last time we were on. But my Garmin is. That's the main one.
3, 4, 5, 4. I have 4. And oddly enough, I wear those a lot.
Yeah.
Because
if I was gonna get one, I'd definitely get one that has it.
Yeah. And I've got one that's not a G-Shock. It's the Pathfinder triple sensor. And it's tough solar, it's atomic, but it's not a G-Shock.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of everything in it. And somebody pointed out to me, it doesn't have sunrise and sunset, so it doesn't have the kitchen sink. Because I referred to it as the kitchen sink in a video. Okay, technically you're right, but sunrise and sunset, I pretty much I experience that every day. So, so I'm okay with that. But all right, sir, we are at the just over an hour. Any last words of wisdom? Anything you want to talk about with your channel? Anything coming up?
Nothing particular. Just trying to get through all the backlog of watches I have. Nice. So a bunch of random stuff coming up. Nothing particular.
Looking forward to it. So guys and gals out there, go to his channel, Relative Time. Is it at Relative Time? Is that the YouTube handle?
Yeah, it should be.
At Relative Time. Yeah, check that out. One of my favorite channels, one of my favorite hosts is Shane. Does a great job. You have, I think, one of the best radio voices out there. I don't know has anybody ever told you that before?
A few times, yeah. And tell me
you've got
books and
yeah. Have you done that? Have
no,
you done audio voiceover stuff?
No. I keep thinking about it. I looked into doing it once. Pretty easy to get into, but it's just as time consuming as YouTube and doesn't pay as much. And YouTube doesn't pay as much either. That much to begin with.
Right. Okay. Well, I think you got it, man. There's a number of voices that are out there, and it's like, oh, I can tell Shane's voice, and it's one of those good, like, what is it, baritone voice or whatever they have. It's like,
yeah, I've had a few people like hear me talk and they just stop and look at me like Relative Time. Like, hi.
Yeah. I think I'd have to play my quirky in and out music for people to recognize me. So that's probably the only thing they'll recognize from the audio side. But for me, I don't think there's a whole lot going on other than I'm doing a lot more of the knife. Well, I haven't done a lot of knives, but a lot of flashlight videos, watch videos, that kind of thing. Getting into the more or less the comprehensive gear thing. I'm going to do some camping because the original idea of this channel was gear. It wasn't watches. So getting back to my roots rather than the distraction of watches. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And you guys check into his channel and what's your schedule real quick? Do you have a schedule of releases? Like, is it every Tuesday,
It's
Wednesday?
random.
It's just random.
I
Okay.
should probably try to get something ironed out,
Okay.
but it's more whenever I finish it, I publish it.
All
At least
right.
one a week.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll catch you guys next time.
See you.